Hey everyone, welcome back to another shift for student-centered learning in spaces. So as an innovator, I'm sure you're constantly thinking about the question is how do we make things more student-centered? And today I want to specifically talk about a way to demonstrate that your classroom or your school is student-centered. And that is this discussion about spaces. Who owns your space, whether that's your classroom, whether that's your school, whether that's a space in between classrooms, from all the spaces, from your gymnasium to your classrooms, to your hallways, who owns that space? And I'll illustrate it with a story. When I was first a teacher, I'm going to take you back 13, 14 years ago. When I was young, I didn't have any facial hair, and I was fresh, I was energetic. I remember decorating my first classroom, and I said, "Mom, can you help me decorate my first classroom? I have no idea." She said, "Sure." It was a fun project. I remember us on ladders, we were plastering all the different posters on the wall, from ancient civilizations to timelines, because I was a history teacher. My mom even had a type of fabric that she said was good for me because it was a masculine type of fabric. I didn't even know those types of fabric existed, but they did. And it was exciting, it was fun, but there was really no room for students' work. There was no room for kind of students' take on, well, what did they want the classroom to look like? And I want to zoom out even farther from just classrooms. What would it look like if we put students in charge of curating the space outside of classrooms in the school, so that the minute people walked through those front doors, they knew it was about the students. So that's what this shift is about. But let's start by looking at what school-owned space looks like. Now, I put a couple arrows, and I'm going to give you a case study of a school. I won't name the name, but this is what you experienced as you moved through the school. Now, it was a proud school, so it did have some stuff on the walls. But I remember you had a couple of pictures here that showed the history of the school. Okay? I remember also you had the mission and the vision of the school. Now, that was a long document. I think it was about 3 or 4 sentences long. It was displayed, very pretty, but it was a lot of text. So I'm going to come back to that in a second and how we might make that a more living mission or vision that's in your space. Another thing that you had as well is you had the pictures, and of course that changes, right? But this is of the faculty of the school. Okay, so you got all the pictures there, all the way from the head of school to the different classroom teachers. And another thing you had as well, and as you can tell, my art's not great. So this is just more to illustrate the point. I'll put a couple shapes in there to make it more interesting. But these are trophies, okay? So we've got trophies for all the accomplishments of the schools. From the basketball teams to their football teams to their debate competitions, so a lot of trophies, big shelves full of trophies. And probably had something over here that I don't exactly remember what it was. But really, the words that come up when you think of something like this is you think it's, the things that the school values is excellence, right? That is definitely shining through. And there's nothing wrong with valuing excellence. But one of the problems with this kind of model, it's school-owned, but it's also very static. Yes, there's some interchanging of some trophies, and maybe you have to add to the timeline, but it's not dynamic in the way that a student-owned space would be. It doesn't give this sense of like, well, what are students doing? What are they thinking? How are they acting? So if we think back to the importance of having that crystal clear vision for learning, what is it that students are doing and learning? That's really what you want to shine through in a student-owned space. And so what would it look like if we moved from a school-owned space to a student-owned space? So I'll write that here. So from school-owned to student-owned spaces. What might this look like? With the student-owned space, I'm going to show a picture here and it's going to come into the screen. That is a picture of High Tech High, one of my alma maters. One of the things that struck me the minute I walked through the doors of those schools is the beautiful work that you saw on the walls. And it wasn't just two-dimensional work. You know, you had different shelves here, and you probably see in the picture. And these are student projects. Okay, so you had all the student project works. And one of the things that suggests this to me in terms of what they value is they show that learning is a process. Because within the student projects, you also see a little bit of a write-up here, if you really zoom into the pictures. And these are write-ups that demonstrate the process. So this is the explanation of the projects that you see. Okay, so there's shelves that show the different projects if you move into the space. And another thing that I really liked about seeing the space, and this is the case in some of the schools, this was a project, and it's just a staircase. And it's a staircase that leads to nowhere, and this is a project that was enacted in the high school. And that just sits there, and it makes you wonder, you go, why is there a staircase in the middle of a school that doesn't go anywhere? Well, it was students that built that staircase. And the staircase can be moved. I think they finally put it on wheels. But it also suggests that learning is dynamic. And this stuff is not permanent. Because that staircase can be moved, these student projects can be changed, you know, as the course of the year goes. So it's all student work that you see here, staircase. Now, even on the walls, you see artwork, okay? And I almost want to call this, so here's, you know, some artwork that's on the wall. And there's graffiti, but the graffiti is in an artistic way. And it's representing the different founders of the school. So that's kind of cool as well, and it's student curated artwork as well. I remember one school I was at where they had a graffiti wall. That graffiti wall could be changed, interchanged, depending on what the experience was and what the big questions were that were guiding the learning. And all of this suggests that learning is very dynamic. Another picture you're going to see here, and I'll show you that picture now, it's coming into view. This particular picture shows Futures Academy, the program I was fortunate enough to work through. And you see how one of the units, the projects, you see displayed some of the work. These are some of the robots that kids came up with in terms of the unit of how do we colonize Mars. So big question, right? But the great part about this is, again, it's dynamic. Depending on the learning experience, a new set of projects come about, it's curated, and that then gets displayed. So think about your space. Who owns a space? How do we know that that space is student owned? What gives that away? And I want you to think very much like a museum and a museum curator. The exhibition is this, you know, big showcase at the end. It's dynamic. There's many ways to learn throughout. So I'm going to show here. Here's a couple TV screens that, you know, you could put on display that are always interchanging, that have a new thing that's featured, and the students can curate that content as well. Just like in a museum, you have a new exhibition, it's about to unfold, people can't wait for it. That's how your school should feel. What's next? What did students do? Parents now don't even have to go in and start asking questions about what you value. They see it, and that's going to generate so much conversation. It's going to generate so much more engagement and enthusiasm. So think about that question. Who owns your space? How can I make it more student owned? And how can I get students more involved with curating that work to make it dynamic? Hope you enjoyed that shift. Let me know what you thought in the comments section.